Okay, we're looking at demystifying, critiquing pure reason by Karl Barth. We are trying to demystify what Karl Barth wrote in this particular book, so that we see what it is that he was trying to communicate. So this is demystifying, critiquing pure reason by Karl Barth. Now, maybe a little background of the book. It's important we take note of the fact that Karl Barth wrote at a time when Christianity was under attack due to various reasons. So Christianity was like almost drowning, and he wrote to try and salvage Christianity from drowning. So Christianity had come to France. That was in the 15th century. That made resistance from Voltaire, but it was able to weather the storms and withstand the resistance from Voltaire. So it pushed on. Later, as it was about to stabilize, we had what we call Protestantism by Martin Luther, who had to leave the Roman Catholic Church. And I think a century or so, that Karl Barth now comes into picture. So this is actually a book by a theologian. It's an apologetic book. That means it's a book that is defending the Christian faith. For some reason or other, Christianity or Christian terminology is limited, very scarce in this particular book, but it's however captured in various places. So with that introduction, we are trying to demystify the book and find what it is that Karl Barth actually said. Now, it's a voluminous book, more than 700 pages long, and with modern technology, it may take maybe hours to be able to maybe comment on almost every aspect of the book. And that's why I have decided to take a simplified approach to the book, to be able to give us some light as to what the book is talking about. Now, what happens with the book, sometimes the preface captures a summary of what the book is all about. So in this particular treatise, I'll be looking at the preface. And another place you find also a summary is in the table of contents. So I will look at that. We are going to look at that as well. We shall also look at a statement or a sentence that is in that particular book and maybe try to explain it in light of what Karl Barth was writing about. So there are several points that are worth noting from the preface. If you read from page 99 to page 09, and one of the points that Karl Barth brings out is, he says, the problem with reason stems from principles. Remember, we are looking at reason, and not just reason, but it's pure reason. Again, the book is critiquing pure reason. Critiquing is looking at something critically, trying to find the finer details of that particular thing to understand it in details. So he says the problem with reason stems from principles. So that is number one. Principles are rules. And then he says that there is a battlefield. There is an area where this reason is being looked at. It's like, where is it being fought? The battlefield is what he calls metaphysics. Now, metaphysics, you'd say it's Christianity, you'd say it's theology, you'd say it's miracles in the Bible. Christianity, theology, miracles in the Bible. Any of those definitions would fit metaphysics. So Karl Barth is telling us there is a battle raging, and this battle involving reason, not just reason but pure reason, this battle is taking place in the sphere of theology, within miracles, within Christianity. So that is what he is saying. And he makes an important statement there. He says, once Queen, now deposed, talking about metaphysics. It was once queen, but it's now deposed. And it was once a despotic, almost like a tyrant. Talking about Christianity, but it now traces, it now retains traces of barbarism. Talking about Christianity, metaphysics, and says this particular Christianity or metaphysics, they talk about metaphysics, it has brought about anarchy. Anarchy is where there is no rule. And what has brought this absence of rule or absence of order? And it goes on to say it's been caused by a civil war brought about by skeptics. So that's what, in summary, we are seeing as being the thing, the thrust of the book. We're getting this from the preface. We're getting this from the preface. So he says, another thing that has brought the anarchy or the misunderstanding in metaphysics is indifference. And this indifference has demanded that there be a power of judgment in the area of criticism. And for that, there has been a quote, that has been said. And the quote now sits at the critique of pure reasoning. So, Karl Barth is saying that his book acts as a quote, more or less, of what is going on in the metaphysics. So he says that pure reason is a complement of religion and legislation. You could say law. Pure reason is a complement that it supports or adds to religion. It supports or adds to a legislation. So he says that this pure reason is arrived at when there is an understanding of rules and boundaries. There has to be deduction of pure concepts of the understanding. And he says the objects, understanding of what? Understanding, one, of objects, and two, understanding itself. So this quote is trying to bring out an understanding of objects, and two, an understanding of understanding itself. How and what affects understanding is what we are looking at now. So he goes on to talk about opinions and concepts that we find in page 93, 94, and all of that to try to clarify the point. So that is what we need to understand. So with that, we need to understand that in pure reason, we try to see how we can arrive at an answer, determine the object up front. That's involving deductive reasoning without being supported by facts, what is termed as a priori in the book. So that is as far as the preface is concerned. If we could turn to the table of contents, we will need to look at the areas that are being covered here. One area is space and time. Another area is analytic and dialectic. So there are two approaches there in trying to understand what is going on. And there are two approaches. One approach is aesthetic. Under aesthetic, we have space and time. The other approach is logic. And under logic, we have analytic and dialectic. So these are things that we look at when we look at the preface. Now, when we talk about the object. The object, the book addresses the object from a sensual point of view, Epicurus being the person who proposes that approach, that you use the sense, and then we have intellectual, which was proposed by Plato. But it's important that we also look at the origin of pure reason. So, origin of pure reason, like I mentioned earlier up there, which is what gives us the object in trying to understand pure reason. The origin is sensual, espoused by Epicurus, and intellectual, espoused by Plato. And we have other people like Aristotle, who also was part of the origin of pure reason, and he espoused empiricist method, whereas Plato espoused neologists or neologism, which is the mind. So these are things to consider. Maybe finally, I shall draw our attention to a statement that we find in that book. Karl Barth says, if a ball cannot go through a hole, can we say the ball is too big for the hole, or the hole is too small for the ball? This is almost a statement that we have today, may not have been there in Karl Barth's time. Talk of a perception where someone looks at something maybe half empty and another one looks at the same thing half full. It's an issue to do with perceptions. So these are issues to consider, even as we look at Karl Barth's critiquing of pure reason.